What I've got for you today is supposed to be an amazing match of StarCraft 2. It's time for a best of 3 series where the #1 Protoss in the world, none other than Classic, is taking on the man on fire lately. We're looking inside of the main base of Reynor. A best of 3 series played during the RSL, a tournament with a very significant prize pool, so I'm excited for this one. Reynor really has been stepping up again over the last few months. And while he had a pretty unfortunate EWC across the board, and I mean, if you ask him, he probably has had a bunch of unfortunate tournaments over the years, Reynor really has been looking really freaking powerful, but there's no denying that Classic right now is an absolute monster. Heading into the EWC, I mean, he obviously had some very successful tournaments this year. Supposedly, before the EWC, he had some very bad ladder sessions. Apparently, like the week or two before the Esports World Cup, he dropped like 500 MMR. So a lot of people weren't entirely sure what to expect from Classic coming into the World Championships, but he ended up, well, making it all the way until the Grand Finals. Maybe he was experimenting with a little bit of variety. If you patrol over here on the edge of the main base, you can actually see the low ground third base right there. Either way, Classic, of course, I mean, he got stopped in the Grand Finals by Serral. Serral just seems to be a step ahead of the, well, rest of the competition, just an absolute beast. But there's no denying that Classic has been playing some fantastic StarCraft as of late, really pushing Serral to the absolute limit, and this matchup, of course, is looking pretty difficult for Zerg players across the board, especially later on. It's just generally, I mean, Protoss kind of has the same issue. There's not a whole lot of variety. You can sort of go like Hydraling Bane, I suppose, in the mid-game if you really want to, but it turns into an all-in very quickly. Most of the early-game problems that Zerg players can cause have mostly been solved, and yeah, it's this tug of war in this matchup oftentimes, where ultimately, at least in a lot of the games that I've seen, Protoss seems to, well, pull a little bit harder in the late game. And Classic really does that better than anybody else. He's very good at staying alive, so he doesn't really have a ton of urgency in his play. He doesn't, generally speaking, strike me as someone that really feels the need to go all in. And obviously, yeah, if you can stay alive for long enough and eventually make your way to the late game, usually that will work out quite nicely for a man like Classic, who's perfectly capable of navigating all of those very complex late game unit compositions for Protoss. But for now, though, we're just starting off with a good old Adept. He is going to see if maybe the Overlord is up on the high ground. I'm not exactly sure what he's looking for here. Maybe seeing if there could be a Zergling nearby that could try to run into the base. Yeah. Really just keeping an eye out on where everything's located. I wonder if that means that he wants to go for like a Phoenix first or a Void Ray first. That's become a little bit more popular again over the last month or two, but I still think Oracle is better. Yeah, it is indeed going to be an Oracle. It just makes so much sense. Really the perfect utility unit, right? You can use it for scouting, you can use it for worker kills, you can use it for worker harassment. You can use it as well in the mid-game very effectively against lurkers. You can still use them very effectively too when you go all the way up towards the Tempest tech. And in general, it's one of those units that needs to be actively used without, well, losing it. And that's one of the main problems you run into. It has a relatively short attack range, of course. But Protoss players have been refining their micro over the years, and Classic is no other. Now, keep in mind that this is Europe going up against South Korea, so it does mean that the games are likely played on a North American server. That means that there is going to be a little bit of ping for the both of them, and especially things like Oracle Micro. It just all gets a little bit more flimsy. You have to basically anticipate what your opponent's move is going to be. Nice group of Zerglings here, though. Third Nexus is not yet up. I think actually, wait, did he get the cancel on it? Ah, yeah. So he planted it. I was going to say, that doesn't really look like the appropriate amount of resources lost here. He didn't need force a cancel on the opponent's Nexus, and that slows down Protoss quite a bit, especially with the probe going down. One has to come on over from the natural expansion. A normal, like, delayed Nexus, what we consider to be delayed, is like 350 or so. And now this Nexus goes up at 415. Not the end of the world, and obviously Zerg did make quite a few Zerglings as well to accomplish that goal. But you do end up with a small deficit here as the Protoss player, for sure. And that is the type of thing that Reynor really likes. Reynor, in general, very good at playing that momentum-based playstyle, and, well, in general, right? He's not really a Protoss, or not really a Zerg player here against Protoss that has any real weaknesses, at least not in the games that I've seen. In my mind, he's not really somebody that really struggles a lot with any particular style. But let's see. It's going to be the Adepts right now joining in with the Oracles. The Zerglings were already set up on the other side of the map. An Oracle, though, was left behind, and great anticipation here from both players. Reynor anticipating the Adept move out. Classic anticipating the Zergling run by. And it does now mean, of course, that not all of the Lings are at home. Oracle as well, right in the back. I love it. Zapping away at a bunch of those Lings. And this is really just to force as little drone production as possible. Any Zergling that gets made is going to be, well, half a drone less. The Adepts decide to recall all the way back out, and look at the value here so far. Keep in mind that 100 minerals were also gone because of the Nexus Council. But Classic, his unit control here has been really, really good. +1 in for the ground units is coming up. We've got ourselves a Blink as well, researching right now for the Protoss player, who is adding on some additional gateways here, and we'll have to see how much damage he's going to be able to do with all of it. A Templar Archives already. One of the most recent developments in this matchup, and also actually in Protoss versus Terran, is Protoss players slowing down their expansion rate and speeding up the Templar Archives. So across the board, you can especially see this against Terran. They're very, very fond of getting the Storm out super quick these days. This is a map, of course, that can also really lean into that very nicely because of the way that the third base here for the Zerg is located and then the third base of the Protoss. I mean, you're not quite neighbors, but you're certainly quite close to each other. Usually Zergs prefer expanding away from the opponent, but the problem with taking this base is that you don't really have a proper fourth base location. Obviously, you could then take this as your fourth base if you take this as your third, but then you don't usually have a lot of creep spread, although he doesn't really have that at this point either. It's a difficult puzzle to solve. And there's a lot of nice timing attacks that especially Protoss can use through the bridges, through the middle of the map. Likewise, Zerg can get value out of that positional advantage, especially when lurkers are out. But we're still a while away from that. Fourth Nexus is also coming up all the way on the right side of the map now. The mirrored location of the Zergs. And then, of course, we have ourselves that Storm research already most of the way done. A massive power spike, and as soon as the Storm is here, usually Protoss players can once more, well, breathe a little easier. It's a big power spike, and now it's done. Charge on the back of this as well. Now, of course, the question becomes, when do you want to add on the additional Stargate and the Fleet Beacon? If you time it too early, you might get overwhelmed by the Zerg because it's a big investment to make. Swarm hosts? Okay, forget everything that I was talking about. Reynor is going suddenly into Swarm hosts here. I would have expected a Hive and a Lurker Den, and I was going to bring up the timing of said Hive in a moment because it felt late. It's because he's going into a 13 Swarm host transition and then also a Nidus network. Okay. So this is Reynor's latest plan to preventing the game from going on too long. We haven't seen these units in months. I cast and I watch a lot of StarCraft. It's extremely rare to see them these days. They can still be powerful though. Oftentimes I kind of feel like the strength of the Swarm host is mostly in the fact that the opponents rarely play against it, so they don't have a lot of practice. Maybe that's just me on, I don't know, a bit of a Swarm host hate train. I don't think the unit is particularly good, but it can, of course, really catch you off guard. Let's see, second Stargate coming up together with a Fleet Beacon, but so is the Nidus Worm. And we can start unloading the little Locust here in just a moment. Send them in. I mean, this is a map, of course, with a very, well, short little distance. And now Classic is going to see what he is actually going up against. He probably did not expect a wave of Locust to fly on through. Looks like he's just going to settle for some static defense for the time being. But yeah, just like that, the workers go down so rapidly. Swarm host damage output is, of course, ridiculously high. It's all about trying to get those Locusts into the right position. But, of course, the cooldown of the Locust ability is also extremely long. Meaning that, well, while you're waiting for the Locust to yet be available again, The Swarmhost is not that powerful, and Protoss can actually push through. Still, though, so far, it seems like Classic is thinking about a move out, but he doesn't quite get the job done. Locusts are once more available, though, and it's important to box them around. He does not quite get the box off in time. Nice bait right there by Classic. Fishing with the Stalkers, wasting an entire wave of those Locusts. And, I mean, these should be pretty easy to counter at this point. Keep in mind, you can always storm them as well if you're really concerned. Okay, carrier production. Carrier production right now to try and counter the good old Swarmhost. The norm is to go into Tempests, but since we're not dealing with Lurkers in this instance, I think carriers do indeed make a lot of sense. Here we go, though. Roach Ling army moving in as well over towards the third base. Oracles do show up. Storms are gonna be an absolute critical component here. What about the Nidus in the main, though? At this point, there's not actually anything inside of it. It's because the Locusts have decided to move on over towards the right side. Classic is certainly going to be able to win the main engagement, but will he win the war if he keeps on eating up like that? 20 probes go down, and maybe even the Nexus itself. Not a bad strike right there for the Italian Zerg. But what about this main army? Lurker Den is coming, but Lurkers are not yet out. Upgrades, of course, not yet available either, and this is a beautiful moment to attack right here for Classic. Those Locusts are going to be on cooldown for a long time. Yes, he's taken a beating at home, but he's not really in a game-ending position just yet, and this army of his has real potential to, well, even win the game right now. We do see some really juicy storms. I feel like the Immortal is not microed as nicely as we, well, really would have liked to see. In the meantime, reinforcing units for the Zerg are popping out of those cocoons, and now the Locusts are yet again available. Can we see a storm on that, please? Can we see a storm on that, please? He doesn't have energy anymore, and it looks like the Prism is not close enough either to really be saving the High Templar. Nice target firing right there by Reynor. Carriers, though, are available now, and that means that the Hydra production is going to kick in. We still have a Nidus Worm all the way in the back of the natural expansion. Fourth base was never quite remade, and Classic really is effectively going all in with this particular attack. More and more Stalkers are showing up because the Prism ended up going down. He needs to warp them in on the other side of the map. But this army here from the Protoss is still massive. Keep in mind that the supply count here of Reynor is a little bit inflated because those Swarmhosts just take up such a large chunk of it. As soon as the Locust wave is here, though, that's going to be enough to force the Protoss player to back off. But Classic did kill the fourth base just now. Needs to be a little bit careful. He decides to blink after those units into the Locust, though. And the Locusts are working together with the Hydralisks quite nicely. Prism is again available here. I think that must have been a new one made. I thought I saw the other one going down, but maybe I was... I don't know, even though there's no sentries available. Maybe I was the one with the hallucination here. Either way, new Stalkers coming up. 11 additional drones end up going down. Classic has smashed his piggy bank, and he added an additional carrier into the mix. +3 ground is going to finish up too. Another Locust wave, though, and I think you back off. Don't lose the carrier to a bunch of Hydras, please. Transfusion on a Hydralisk just to try and keep it alive. Classic is going to lose a carrier. Honestly, quite sloppy. He's even going to lose the second one as well. Ay, ay, ay. Why did we fly them in that direction anyways, man? The range on those units is what makes them so powerful. Oh, why are we warping in? Classic! Yo, did Classic just go AFK for a little bit? Or did he, like, let his little brother take over? Those were... Those were some very poor mistakes. Very uncharacteristic errors there. Like, keeping the carriers alive, keeping the Prism alive is basically your main goal. Now the Locusts show up in the natural because he still did not warp in a single unit to try and deal with the network in the natural. Classic, did we just throw it? I think you were on the brink of winning the game. And now suddenly, I mean, Reynor gets a lot of room to breathe. I wouldn't say that this is a good position here for the Zerg. But it doesn't feel as atrocious as it did a minute ago. I mean, he's still kind of dying, but he's not dead, which I expected him to be at this point in the game. I mean, the problem is, right, for the Protoss here, Swarmhosts are effectively the only unit, other than maybe Infestors and Vipers, that Zerg has access to, that gain value over time. Value as in, like, the amount of resources that they will be able to kill. So, as you can see right now, Zerg has lost about an even amount of minerals and gas in total compared to the Protoss. And that's where Swarmhosts are really good. Swarmhosts are one of the very few units for Zerg that can actually win from an economical deficit. So this is not actually done yet. Reynor at 44 workers, but let's not pretend that Classic's economy here is phenomenal. Now, in the meantime, Reynor did go all the way up towards Hydra, Lurker, Viper. Obviously, you add Swarmhost and a Nidus Worm into the mix. It's got real potential to claw its way back in. It's just difficult to control. I really think Classic should do a better job paying attention to his dead spots. Yeah, okay, finally he sees this one now, but I feel like we've seen a Nidus Worm in his exact same position like 17 times already. Same for this one right over here. Why is there no spotter unit up here? Oh, we have a Zealot, but the Zergling just ran by? Maybe the Zergling was all the way over there all this time already. Even though he didn't see it, now the Swarmos are once more going to be raining down into the natural expansion, I would imagine. Don't bait the fire. So the Locusts are only controllable after they're fully up in the air. And when they're fully up in the air, that's when you can micro them for the first time. So some of them right there got boxed in time. The other half, and this is another one of those things that I think is harder to do with 150 ping or so than it would be on the European server. That is now the second time that half a wave of those Locusts gets denied. Nice work, of course, by Classic. Having the Zealot there in the right place at the right time. Okay, he decides to slow down the game entirely. We're gonna go into the Mothership together with Carriers and Immortals. Classic has now decided to shift his course from trying to obtain the victory right now into securing the win in about 5 minutes. Still though, it's a cool idea in concept, but it also does mean that Reynor gets an awful lot of wiggle room, and he will likely be able to max out again here as well. Classic is making big investments into upgrades, infrastructure, units that really aren't going to be available for another minute or two. And it's going to give the Zerg, well, all the potential here to do whatever. Now, Serral, it's a very similar type of situation. Serral doesn't go Swarmos, though. Reynor here, I mean, that's a good compliment, right? Being confused with Serral for a moment. I mean, that would make my week. That would make my year. If anybody would... Anyways, Reynor over here. Please call me Serral. Reynor over here is still anticipating a big push. He's trying his absolute best to stay alive. But we are now past that point. Classic is no longer trying to win the game right now. He's chilling. Nexus over here on the right gets spotted though, and I think this is going to give Reynor all the intel. By the way, Reynor is going to go Hydra, Lurker, Viper, Zergling, Nidus Worm, Swarmhost, Infestor. All of those units need to have a separate control group. I don't know how many hands the man has. Last time I saw he had, you know, how many hands do humans usually have? I think most people have 2. I'm not entirely sure, but this is the type of unit composition you usually have. About the need for 4 hands. I feel with 4 hands, this is an army composition that's very microable. But with only 2, yeah, I guess the average is just under 2 for humans. If I don't know the numbers, but I guess just under 2 would be the correct answer. Reynor, though, would greatly benefit from having about 30 fingers here. We're going to go and add some Overseers into the mix, too. Obviously, some of these units can be on the same control group. Like the Hydralisks and the Zerglings, and then the Overseers and the Vipers. But it's difficult to really find enough space, and especially like enough mental room to be able to use the control groups at the right time. He's technically got all of the tools at his disposal, though, but here comes Classic with an absolute bulldozer of an army. The Nidus network will only be fully losing the units inside of it when every single end, mouth, whatever, gets destroyed. Nice abductions over here, though, by Reynor. Carrier should be completely out of range, but 23, 25 drones now have already gone down. New carriers are coming up. Swarmos, in the meantime, working away at the 3rd. They'll be sent back home through the network just to try and be annoying as well on the other side of the map. Although I don't even really know exactly how many spots they are still, available. Nexus itself goes down, though, but so does the Hive. Classic has broken open the natural as well as the main base of the opponent. But does he have a good enough army to actually compete with that of the Zerg? I think the Mothership is going to go for a mass recall. My god, this is a risky play, but he's going to be bringing every single one of those Protoss units to the low ground. Immediately, though, Reynor says, don't mind if I do, as he abducts a few more of the carriers. And those carriers have really not been worth their while thus far. How many have died? 7. I mean, it's Hydralisks, man. You guys have like twice the range. You should not be dying to the Hydras. Still, Classic's army here is looking absolutely monstrous. Swarmos, in the meantime, though, are working away at whatever they can hit. Looks like the natural expansion will live for now. Reynor has thought about maybe going in for the counterattack, but Classic's army, it's just a little bit too big. And while this hasn't been a clean win for Classic, it's a win in the end, and that's all that matters. A cool attempt by Reynor. But I feel like those few Locust waves that fell to the ground immediately really messed the match up for him quite a lot. Usually, I found with Swarmhost builds, the first wave is like the critical one. So when the first wave goes in, bam, that's the moment when it almost feels like the game gets decided. Because it really begins the momentum that either goes positively in favor of the Zerg or negatively in favor of the Zerg. Negative. Professional commentator alert. Anyways, I wonder how much the fact that this is Europe versus Asia really comes into the mix. Games are very likely to be played on like NA Central, maybe NA West, right? It kind of depends on the game and whatever match they decide on, but it really does make it a little bit more difficult. So you have about a split second before the Locust land when there's a target on the ground right next to them when they first spawn, right? So you need to effectively box and instantly make sure that they do not go onto attack move. Locust are one of the very few units that come out on attack move. All the other units in StarCraft 2, when they pop out of a production structure, for example, they always spawn on move command. But Locust spawn on attack move, and they basically just go after whatever target they can. It would probably be better, actually, now that I'm saying that out loud. Maybe they should make it so that Locust automatically always come out on move command? That would actually be a nice little quality of life change for... Anyways, Oracle swoops in. God, that's really bad, Classic. Why did we move so deep? Lucky for him, he keeps this Oracle alive, but I kind of feel like he almost doesn't deserve it. That was so far. All right, well, ultimately, it just barely sustains its HP. Actually, I think that would be a really nice quality of life improvement for the game. Could somebody write this down, please? Zerg. Swarm hosts now spawn locusts on move command rather than attack move. I don't think anybody would be against that. And it would actually be like a 5% buff for swarm hosts. I'm pulling the 5% out of my ass, but I do really think it would be a significant improvement. Yeah, in about 6 years from now, when Blizzard finally wakes up, that would be a good, easy change. All right. We have ourselves good old Blink again, together with the Forge. Little Zergling run by. Keep in mind that in the previous game, Classic ended up losing his third Nexus at about 410 or so. That really started off the potential, I think, to go into Swarm Hosts. And even though the Oracle Micro has been ambitious thus far, Classic has not really been slowed down in any way. Oracle number 2 swoops in. The old school Oracle over here. Okay, he's going to see the base as well on the right. Stasis Ward in the meantime in the middle of the mineral line. Not enough energy available in that Oracle to really kill the hatch, but... okay. Blink is going to be hitting the battlefield here in just a moment. Before that point, though, we're gonna go into the glaive... no, not the glaive to depth world. They still have the glaives of research, I suppose, right? They just have, like, their regular glaives. But no attack speed improvement for it. They're gonna try and work together with the oracles on killing the base itself. And honestly, this has real potential. Yeah. Not a move we really see that often, but Classic decided to, honestly, quite far along into the building of the structures, decided to go after it. In the meantime, he does have Templar Archives once more coming up, so we should see the Storm Research right now. I'm snapping my fingers, Classic. Come on. Yo, somebody go wake up Classic. I feel like, maybe I don't want to be overly critical here, but I feel like Classic was a bit sharper. I mean, I know that the score is currently 1-0 in his advantage, but I feel like he was a little bit sharper a few weeks ago. Especially at the EWC, it was just, like, everything looked like a well-oiled machine. This is all just a little bit slower now. Adept show up. Big Zergling run by in the meantime, or Surround Rotor though here in the meantime. That's nice. Plenty of links available to prevent the Adept Shade, and Reynor decides to go into a Spire now. This is another one of those or nothing type of plays. Similar to Swarmos in the previous game, I think, well, Muta transitions are by no means the best option you have available as Zerg. But it is certainly going to force the Protoss to play defensively, right? So rather than the Zerg being a bit of a punching bag, this is going to allow Reynor to at least control the battlefield. He does have about 1,000 gas saved up by the time the Spire is fully erected. There it is. 6 mutas for now, though, as he still spent some of it as well on roaches. I think that's probably the plan. Just make a few mutas just to like harass, and then maybe do the classic 1-2 punch. Mutas in the main, roaches at the third. Fleet Beacon coming up right now as well for Classic. So rather than Zerg being the punching bag, Classic is going to be a bit of a punching bag. This is extremely defendable, though, for Protoss. I mean, we see mutas all the time where they just do absolutely nothing. And it's a big investment. 800 minerals, 800 gas for these units to come out. If you include the cost of the Spire, this is like 2 motherships. Wow. So useful. Wow, that was great, man. All of that damage for 800 minerals, 800 gas. So sick. Alright, we do have the Phoenix production, I guess, kicking in right now. Bit of an overcorrection here, honestly, from Classic. He really doesn't need it. And maybe that's what Reynor is banking on, though. Classic is not follow-up scouting here. He's not seeing, whether or not Zerg is actually committing to mass muta. Reynor's like, oh no, my mutas didn't really deal a lot of damage, but in reality, that was just a distraction from this main army that is moving in right now. I think there's about 2 storms still available. Energy is not going to be rechargeable for another minute or so. Okay, maybe another 20 seconds or so. The storms are good, but the roaches don't care that much with the amount of HP that they've got. Still, though, the queens are off creep right now. They can't use their transfusion energy. The storms are juicy left, right, and center. And despite Classic being completely unaware of this fight, yeah, I think he's just dealing with this. Wow, what a defense right here from Classic. It's one of those things, right, where roaches have a lot of HP, but they don't have an infinite amount of HP. So if you're dancing in the storm, you should expect to get wet. Reynor there ended up getting, shut down. I mean, one more storm over here would be massive. He decides to go for the sentry, so I guess you can force field it out. Carrier production, though, has kicked in. And slowly but surely, the carriers will be spawning. There's no anti-air available other than Brenda and Karen. Don't forget about Karen. Reynor's actually kind of doubling down on this push. I really think we should warp in some Templar Classic. Why do we not have any Templar? You could also start up a mothership. Why do we have so much money in the bank? We've got 10 gateways. How are we not spending? This is what I mean when I'm talking about the sharpness that is lacking a little bit here on Classic's end of the games. Like, look at Classic's bank. He's got nearly, well, now he's got a little less, but he still has, like, so many resources available. Maybe he's saving up money so his Protoss children can go to college or something. I don't know. But last time I checked, you don't need to win the game with 2,000 resources in the bank. Okay, he finally spends his cash. Now that Zerg has been forced to back up for a moment. Spore Crawlers, though, will be coming up. Look at this. Reynor going for the full offense. I think it's kind of working for him, but also he needs to be very cautious. Because in the previous states, it was mostly working because Classic was not spending his money. Now that Classic has spent his cash, this is the type of game that can go horribly wrong. But here we go. It's a slow push with Spore Crawlers. New Queens have popped out of the hatcheries. Ravagers are raining biles. No movement here on these Protoss units. He's taking biles onto the carriers. Classic, wakey, wakey. Yeah, I mean, at this rate, it's going to work. The Spore Crawlers are going to be here, man. And with the Spore Crawlers moving forward, flying units are effectively off the table. And it's just going to be pure Stalker against Ravager Ling. I don't think this is going to work out all too well. Obviously, now the Queens are also protected quite nicely. And that means that they can slowly push the creep towards the natural expansion. And this intersection over here is the most critical part of the map that Classic can control. And he's completely lost any position over here. Zerglings are showing up. New roaches are popping out of cocoons as well. Even though the beginning of this fight was really nice for Classic, I don't think it's going to end up well for him. A new Immortal showed up. It's going to die to Queens? Hello, Classic. Classic! 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 He thought the unit's name was Immortal. So he figured he doesn't need to micro it. Turns out it can still die. I mean, that's false advertising right there. GG gets cold and Reynor does get a win, but I really don't know if that was supposed to happen. All right, and that means that this series is going to be decided on Tokamak. Final map in this best of 3. Stargate right here for Classic. Once more, no surprise there. I don't know at what time this series was played, but the RSL is a Korean tournament. Yes, non-Koreans can participate. But usually, it's going to be played at a very friendly time for Koreans. If anything, you would imagine maybe Reynor to be a little bit sleepy. Although, of course, many of these gamers, they are already living the D-Gen video game player schedule. Especially the pro gamers in their early 20s, I believe. As the game is getting older, so are the pro gamers. At least on average. So many of them have a more conventional sleeping schedule these days, but across the board, I think that was a sloppy game from Classic. What about this one, though? The early game has been quite good for him. Look at this! Ah! Why did we lower the HP on 3 individual drones? Pain. That means he either wasn't targeting, or he was misclicking. Nothing of that is related to ping. So, I really don't think, by the way, that previous game was supposed to be, like, quote-unquote, supposed to be a win for Reynor. It was almost like one of those victories that you can, of course, be happy with. But if Reynor would have looked at the replay quickly before this particular game started, I think he would agree that that really wasn't supposed to be a win. When Classic barely held on, he had like 2,000 resources in the bank. Okay, and maybe he's in agreement too that he's playing a little bit messy today. Everybody's allowed to have a bit of an off day, but Classic decides to go into the good old Glaive Adept research this time around. So this is straight up attack speed for Adepts. They're very good at sniping workers. Let's see what we can do. Roach Warren coming up for Reynor. A lot of Zerg players like skipping this one. Dangerous to do, especially against these type of builds. Lair right now as well at 445. The main goal here for Zerg is to make sure that you do not over-drone. If you find yourself with too many workers, you will straight up lose to the Adept timing attack. So he's hiding 2 Adepts over here on the side. I love that here by Classic. What Reynor is looking for is the additional warp-ins, and now he sees. Okay, now he knows. He's trying to see if there's Stalkers being warped in or whether or not it's going to be something else. Well, in this particular instance, it will be the Adepts. He did see it, but did he see it in time? Roach production begins. Zerglings are going to pop out of their cocoons already, but the Adepts are showing up over at the 3rd base. Few of the Adepts, though, leading the charge. Full walling over here with a new Evo chamber. Well, fully walling this section of the map off. This is something Cyril started incorporating into every single one of his games. And apparently Reynor likes it. I think it's very smart. Whoa, look at the bait. He knew where the Protoss was going to be shading to next. Built a spine crawler right next to it. Enough energy available. Another reroll. What a defense here from Reynor. Woo! That was kind of hot. Did you lose a drone? Yeah, a drone. That's crazy. That's about the perfect defense that you can hope for. Very slick work here by the Italian. Showing us, well, maybe why Glaive to Depth builds are not very popular anymore in the current meta. In the meantime, Storm. And Blink. And probably a 4th Nexus as well in a moment. Adepts are still trying to find an angle. But yeah, now that you look at this type of defense, right, you wonder why we don't see this from literally every single person out there, because it just seems like the best thing to do. Cyril really the one popularizing that, although he's been doing it for quite some time, and a lot of other Zerg players just don't do it. Excuse me. So Protoss so far, running into a couple of issues. The main problem is that he's invested a lot of resources into something that really didn't work. The 4th Nexus has been delayed as a result. Any sort of Skytools follow-up is probably going to have to be delayed by about a minute. And while you will have Storm available, any follow-up right now from Reynor is going to be scary. Be it Swarm Hosts, be it Hydraling Bane, be it just good old Lurkers, which I would consider to be the standard in this matchup right now. But Reynor hasn't gone for any of that just yet. Similar to what we had in the previous game, where Reynor decided to go for a Spire and get no damage done at all. Classic decided to go for Glaive to Depths, and also is getting punished for it, although I think the Muta fake out was almost, well, exactly that, right? Like, he made the investment into Mutas. And Classic certainly over-respected the amount that was going to be. And I think it threw him off his game plan a little bit. Obviously, it wasn't entirely useless, right? Like, he did kill a bunch of units here, and he did slow down the Zerg a bunch, too. Forcing out that many links is painful. But Reynor decides to just go for the most conventional follow-up possible. So he's going into a Hive, he's going into a Lurker Den as well. And he is slowly building up. Now, this is the type of thing where, as a Protoss player, if you're dealing with Lurkers and you don't yet have a Fleet Beacon, and preferably like 2 Tempests out already, they can just absolutely tear you apart. The first wave of Lurkers is going to be the one to watch for. When Reynor gets, like, I don't know, a dozen Lurkers out, if he can, like, walk them over here, burrow them right next to the Nexus or, like, close to it, that can quite literally seal the deal immediately. Classic is still very much so stuck in that, like, mid-game army right now because he knows the transition is going to be expensive, but the longer he waits, the more dangerous it's going to be as well. This is a big push here from the Zerg, but it's almost a fake one. I think the way that Reynor is selling this is very clever. So far, he's not really been playing Lurkers, of course, throughout these games at all, and while this push is likely to deal any sorts of real damage, he's hunting High Templar. Ooh, that's real good. Any High Templar that goes down right now is another delay on the Fleet Beacon, because Classic will have to replace it. The real attack is going to come when this upgrade is done. Seismic Spines is coming. We do have a Stargate, though, a second one added into the mix, but no Fleet Beacon yet. 300 minerals, 200 gas for a Fleet Beacon. Classic has 4 bases, should be able to afford it. Classic! Ah! Why do we... That's why we can't afford it. Yeah, now he notices. He's lacking about 100 gas right there on that second assimilator. Probably got harassed by a bunch of roaches there, right? But yeah, now the fleet beacon comes up as well, but this is going to be dangerous. Seismic Spines is slowly ticking by, and I've got a little bit of concern right here for the Protoss. He's going to seed his army right now. Lurkers are going to slow burrow. I do like this move out, though, meeting it in the middle of the map just to prevent it from sieging up right next to your base. But at this point, there's no reaction. There are 2 observers out somewhere. One of them is probably with the army. Protoss, though, is, well, trying their best to deal with a small chunk of the Zerg, but in the meantime, the other half of the army of our Italian player is moving into the Nexus, and this is exactly what Reynor is hoping for. In the meantime, I mean, this fight over here in the middle is not ideal for the Zerg, but not terrible. Couple High Templar left to their own. No Prism to go ahead and pick them up. Prism, for some reason, was far forward. Couple of Zealots get all army hotkeyed back as well from harassing those Zerg bases, and now Reynor is going to be able to use the rest of his units, get a couple more High Templar potentially too, although he does eat a few storms. Now he's going to be able to bring his units back home as he gets a full surround now on a Protoss player that's sort of stuck in the middle of the map. Uncharacteristic errors here from Classic across the board in this series. Tempest production begins right now. Very ambitious warp in. It's not going to happen. A very aggressive push there by Classic, but I think it was a forced move, right? He really didn't want to be there, and then suddenly he found himself stuck between a rock and a hard place, not where he wanted to be at all. Nice work, of course, by Reynor. I think this last game was the best of him by far. Just very clean, good defense, nice fake outs, right? I feel like the rest of the series really sold the hyper-aggressive mid-game, where without scouting, because Classic didn't really check, without scouting, Classic kind of assumed, okay, this guy is not playing late game. He's going to go for some sort of all-in. It's going to be Ravager Ling, maybe Banelings on the back of it, whatever it's going to be. All I need to do is just defend. And then eventually, I mean, the Lurker showed up, and he just didn't have an answer. Well done by Reynor. GG's.